Welcome to the Office Latte Podcast, where we go beyond the boardroom to explore new conversations on life and career. I'm Erin Kennedy, CEO of Professional Resume Services and wife, mother, sister, daughter, aunt, and friend. Now, let's dive in. Hello, Summer.
Good morning, Erin. How's it going?
Oh, it's good. I am drinking water right now and stuff because technically it's almost 11:45 a.m. Eastern. So I've already had about 3 cups. What are you drinking?
It's bright and early here in San Diego, so I'm drinking actually a warm mocha because I just woke up cold. So I was like, I'm going to go warm.
You woke up cold in California.
It's a little
so hard.
So I wanted.
It's like 15 degrees here, hence the scarf and the freezing cold, But
probably 58.
Oh yeah, I don't comprehend that. But anyways, I was thinking we haven't talked about coffee in a while, probably because we're doing the podcast later. And by that time I'm already like my coffee and I just forget to bring it up.
I know.
Even though, we are the Office Latte Podcast.
It's the staple of this.
It is a staple. I know. I have drank half a pot.
Nothing's changed, everyone. We're still addicted.
I know. Okay. So I was going to talk to you about, our next guest. I'm, of course, excited to talk to him because he is the founder of something called nodegree.com. And he interviews people that have become really successful without a college degree. I've noticed because, my youngest graduated last year and, he's so hands-on, he can figure anything out. And I know, we went to college, I went to college and our oldest is in college, but, we were kind of encouraging a trade, engineering or plumbing or something, because his brain is so good about fixing and doing things, but he wanted to go to college, which is fine. But I noticed this trend of, and you and I were talking about this before, we started recording, but the trend of people getting into the workplace or, going to work without degrees and, either corporate or doing a trade. I mean, are you seeing a lot of this?
Yeah. And I think what you're saying about even I feel like you have always had that mindset that trade or college. And I feel like that was a lot, maybe in your generation, that was very the obvious, either a trade or go to college.
Right.
And I feel like it got to a point around when I was in school where I feel like the trades stopped, it was almost looked down upon or there was just a stigma around it. But then I felt like the wheel changed more when I after I graduated, where then trades started coming up more. But now we're in this kind of evolution of people are just reconsidering why am I even going to college? And I think it's probably a question that we need to have at least in America because of the cost.
Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous.
Problem, yeah.
It's I mean that's a whole other thing, we can get started on, but and I know how much my kids' college costs, and they're shocked at the price of courses of each class, and and what I paid way back when and what my parents paid. And so anyways, it just keeps going up and it's ridiculous. I follow somebody on somewhere and she's a doctor and she was saying that her, the cost of her college plus the cost of her additional coursework and not certifications, but maybe board certifications.
There's pay for tests at the end too.
Yes. And all the tests that she had to take, she said each test was $2,000. And she said, she has $250,000 of student loan debt. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, no matter how much you're making, even if you're a doctor and you're making a ton of money, that is going to take a long time to pay back,
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, I think I think that was really what people were seeing was that even when they got a college degree in the last, say, 10 to 15 years, it wasn't paying off their student loans like they were promised. Whereas a doctor, that kind of system's still in place where you get in a huge amount of debt, but you also get a huge salary right when you're done finally. And so even now that system's kind of breaking. I have friends who are in med school and they're even a little worried, kind of doing the math in their head being this is still going to take a really long time to pay off. Or God forbid they have other priorities wanting to have kids or get married or go on vacation.
Buy a house someday,
I mean, I think all of it is combined. And so I think having no degree, I think was the natural like evolution for people to be like, what other things can I do? And with the world of like online businesses, obviously like us, oops,
Right.
like I think people just saw different pathways to success or what they define as success. And so more and more people are taking quote unquote the risk, but now it's like barely a risk. Like you can go and make money
I
online
know.
so easily.
You really can. I mean, I think about, because one of my kids was like, you created this business and you really didn't need a degree. And I said, well, I guess technically I just needed a bunch of resume writing certifications, but I said I do have my degree in human resources that backs me up, and it gives me some credibility. I mean, on top of the certifications and everything, but yeah, I just see it. I see it changing. So I'm excited to talk to our next guest, Jonaed Iqbal, and see, because he's got so many stories. And I mean, this, for him, this is what he's doing is helping these people without degrees, and they're getting these great jobs. So
yeah, we're going into like the corporate world, or just going into jobs where it's non-traditional to go into those types of positions without degrees. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to this. So hey, let's just jump in. Hey, Jonaed.
Hey, Erin. So excited to do this.
I know. I was just telling Summer, we were talking before you came on, and we were talking about No Degree Career site and your podcast. And so tell us a little bit, give us this, because Summer and I were talking about, I know you and I are going to have a lot to talk about this, but so tell me what, kind of got you into this. So you're the founder of nodegree.com and host of the No Degree podcast. So you interview people. So tell me a little bit more.
Yeah.
How did you get into that? Yeah.
I was on Reddit it was over 10 years ago. Someone asked, for those of you without a college degree who make over 6 figures, what do you do and how'd you get the job? And people said, like, I'm a claims adjuster, I'm a database administrator, I'm a plumber, I'm a welder, elevator repair. I work on this software, I have these certificates. And I was like, how'd you get the job? It was like my uncle, my cousin, my friend, my whoever.
Okay.
And then I was like, what if you don't have that uncle, cousin, or friend?
Yeah.
And the other thing is, all these jobs were jobs no one thinks about becoming when they grow up. Like, no one thinks about becoming a claims adjuster. If you ask most kids in high school, even college, it'll be like doctor, lawyer, engineer, accountant, and a couple of the mainstream jobs. And now, I guess YouTuber is a profession too.
Right.
But most of the time, people fall into these jobs, right? They major in something, they get called back, and their first job influences their traditional career. So I was like, there's a big issue with people not knowing about the careers that are out there. Yeah. And so they need to be educated about the career. And then for people without degrees, oftentimes people without degrees, a lot of them are capable of getting degrees, but it's life circumstances. About 60% of students in college come from middle-class backgrounds or higher. And the people who don't come from backgrounds that have support, they tend to drop out or they take much longer to graduate. And a lot of people don't have the privilege of going to college. Like I'm an assistant wrestling coach in New York City, and there are some kids who were like, hey, my only option is the military, or I need to find something right away. I can't wait 4 years.
Right.
So many scenarios where
I need to work right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So you're currently a wrestling coach as well? And
yeah.
So you get, to talk to these younger kids who are thinking about what to do. So, okay. So take me back. So how did you found this company? How,
So I mentioned on Reddit, and then I was like, you know what? Let me search up trades.com.
Yeah.
It was for sale, but I was like, at that time they would at least ask for 100K, and now it's worth several million. So then I was like, let me search up nodegree.com, and it was they had a price inquiry. I filled it up. I didn't expect much. And like a few days later, someone sent me an email. I think I missed the first one, but the second one had a price. And I called like a couple of my buddies. One didn't answer. And I was like, hey, we should buy this, and we're going to make a blog, and we're just going to be rich. And the story's much different. But as I went down the rabbit hole, I really was like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah. Is helping people without a degree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Summer and I were talking earlier and about, this day and age is, I mean, and my parents, were older. I mean, they didn't have to have a degree. They both got degrees, but they didn't need degrees. And to get ahead they could just be kind of they could just build their career. And then in my generation, we really needed degrees, especially my mom was totally pushing degrees because it was just all girls and she was, but, and it was really seemed important, but it seems like now I've noticed this, the trend kind of goes back and forth, but now, between starting a business online or, doing a trade like plumbing or electrical or whatever, you really can have a pretty substantial career without a degree. So, can
I add something?
Yeah.
So
yes,
people think like it's like the trades or a business, but people don't realize like you can get corporate jobs in sales, marketing, technologies. Right. Now, what I always say, if you want to compete with someone with a degree, you have to show that you take initiative. So you can do your own projects. Like, for example, I'll give an example, like in marketing or programming. Let's say you don't have a degree, but you're very proactive. You should take YouTube classes. There are a lot of online certifications and all that. Get those. Now approach a local business, be like, hey, I'd like to market your business. I'd like to help you set up XYZ. And now you have some experience, and that experience will be your internship. Most businesses will be like, all right, cool, we don't have to pay you. And then you can leverage it to the next paid opportunity. And then sometimes the businesses will be like, hey, you know what? We want to pay you. And for programming and tech, you can build them a website. And you can get a little portfolio going. For sales, you approach someone as like, hey, look, I'm looking to start my career in sales. I've read a lot of books. Can I sell for you on a commission-only basis? So you have to be proactive.
You have to hustle. You really have to
hustle. There's no way around, but it's much quicker than spending 4 years in school. You have to maybe do something unpaid for 6 months to a year. But now you have 3 more years of paid work experience compared to your college degree counterpart.
Very true. I mean, that is great. And I was thinking about my own kids and I, thinking about this hustling and, which ones would be perfect at that and which ones wouldn't, because not everybody can do that because it is a lot of, pushing yourself and you're going to get some rejection too, but you do anywhere, wow. Interesting. Okay. So with your podcast, you interview people without degrees and you have them share their stories. So what have you learned? I know you said, so part of your bio, you've helped over 700 candidates get jobs and interviews at these bigger companies like Amazon, Google, and Meta, and Spotify, and Tesla, and TikTok, and Disney, everything. Yeah. So are you coaching them then? Is that kind of what you're doing? And
so when I'm working with people, I'm typically spending like 5 to 6 hours, at a minimum of 3, depending on. But if I'm only spending 3 hours with them, they're actually going through a program I designed. So they have to go through hours of modules to make sure that before they come to me, they have a lot of info. Now I'm writing their resumes and I'm spending 2 to 3 hours with them on their resume, going line by line. And I'm like, I'm teaching them how to fish because, as you know, they may have to customize it. They may have to adjust it for certain things and all that. Like one resume can't do everything. No. I do try to make sure that they don't have to customize for every role, but that the resume works for what they're looking for. And then it's like helping them network, right? Right. How do you network?
It's huge. Yeah.
And networking isn't, hey, I want to work at your company. Can you give a referral? It's like, how do you build authentic relationships that last? Because sometimes the job you want 5 years from now, it's a connection that you made 1 year from now that you stay in touch, who ends up getting promoted and is now going to hire you. And then I'll optimize their LinkedIn profile, tell them how that works. I'll help them with like interview strategy. I'll help them with salary negotiation. I'll help them with application strategy. So all the little things, people don't realize that there's a lot that goes into job search. And 2024 is brutal. Like I remember 2021, it was like, hey, I know how to spell Google. It's like, all right, you're hired. And now in 2025, it's like
24 was brutal. It was brutal. I mean, it was a tough year. Hoping 25.
Yeah. And look, I always hope things are better, but I always say prepare for the worst because as a candidate, as an individual, there are still strategies that work. They just take longer and it's much more exhausting. But I tell people in bad economies, you got to prioritize safety. And in good, when things get better, you got to prioritize growth. And because I've come across people who took risk and
what do you mean by safety?
So in the sense of, let's say you have a stable job, you like your job, but you want that growth, and you're going for like the startup. I tell people, look, I work for 2 startups, and one of them, I lost a job within 3 months. I mean, it was my fault, but they laid off everyone in the U.S. like a month or 2 later. So it's like, because
it was tough. The writing was on the wall anyway.
Yeah, writing was on the wall. And then another one, again, they laid off hacked the company a few months after like I was let go. It's just tough because I've seen people leave cushy jobs for growth because of promises. And let me tell you, companies always lie. They'll say, hey, we have a culture of this, we have a culture of that, we'll promote you. And then you go, oh, we don't have the budget, oh, it's tough times. And they dangle the carrot. And you literally have no power other than to leave. But now you're categorized as a job hopper, right? And it's just it's a lose-lose. So I say, like, make sure if you are going for growth that you have adequate savings, that, hey, let's say you have, at least, I tell people, look, 6 months is the minimum, but you should go for a year or more, and you really have to think about it because some of these job searches are just brutal.
It is, and it takes a long time. It's not like it was, oh my gosh, 21, 22.
Oh, those are the times.
I know.
Those were the times.
Oh my gosh, they were just handing out jobs. Yeah. But it's not like that now. So who is your typical audience? Is it younger people, or are you finding that you're getting people that are a little bit older and, like you said, want growth, want to try something different? I mean,
I'm going to tell you, most people who I'm working with, they're above 30.
Oh, okay.
And I'll be honest, you probably see, they have some of them have degrees. Like, funny enough, 70 to 80% have degrees, but 20 to 30% don't. And I'm going to tell you why. So people earlier in their career, they're not used to investing in themselves. So I'll get early career, but they're like, oh, if I throw any price at them, even like $50, they're like, oh, I don't have that. And I'm like, okay, what'd you expect to pay? And
this is an investment in your career. It really is.
And they haven't seen budgets, because once you've seen budgets, you've seen people get paid 100, 150, 200, 300, 400 an hour. Whereas, like, if I can't convince someone it's okay to spend on yourself. Right. Because if you're really stingy, and I've gotten people raises in the 30K to 150K range. So, like, whatever they paid me, they got a huge multiple. But there are other people who are like, I'm going to go on YouTube, watch everything. And I'll point them to free resources. And look, free resources can get you to a certain point. But if you think about all the highest performing people, they all have coaches.
You need coaches. You need a coach. You need a mentor, somebody who can walk with you to get to that level that you want. I mean, really, I know exactly what you mean. You really do need to partner with somebody who knows how to get you there. So, okay. I know I had asked you about this and said, so you have this no degrees company, but you have 2 degrees.
Fortunately. Fortunately. So,
but I mean, really, you are the perfect example of somebody who really didn't need to get these degrees. So you have a master.
Yeah, I have a master in actuarial science from Columbia University. I found it's crazy. I found nodegree.com my last semester, and I got the degree from my parents. So I'm immigrant household.
I can see that. Yeah.
I think if I didn't go to college, I think like my dad would have killed me. And it's funny because my dad works construction, and I should have gone down his path. And one time I asked to work for him, and he yelled at me. He's like, "I didn't come to this country so you could work a manual job." But they're coming from what they know, right? And when you come
very proud of you.
Mm-hmm. So when they come, when you're in Bangladesh, the only escape you have is education, right? Yeah. But times have changed, and I got the degrees. I was always a good student, so a lot of people realize I was like middle school. I remember me and my friend I got like 100 in math one time.
Oh my god!
So I was a pretty good student. And then high school, I went to a top 20 high school in the country where it produces the most amount of kids who go to the Ivy League for master's degrees, not undergrad. Because when the Ivy League chooses undergrad, they only choose a few from every school. So a lot of people who get kicked out of my school, they end up getting like 100 averages everywhere else. So it's like my school was way too hard for
very hard.
It was just too much busy work. It was just like overloaded. Like I'd come home from wrestling practice at like 8:30 or 9, and I have like 3-4 hours of homework every day for no reason.
Yep.
And when I went to Columbia, I was a poor kid, so I still live at home, and I remember there were kids like they would go on vacation internationally over the weekend. When they were stressed, they'd have tutors 100, 200, 300 an hour. Like they were wealthy. Like I'm talking about kids graduated and their dads formed a company, hired a CEO, made them a director.
Oh my gosh.
So, and look, they were smart kids, but they come from very privileged backgrounds. So a lot of times people don't realize, like, even in a lot of these schools, like a place like Columbia, I think 80% come from the top 5% of society, because international students, you got to pay the full tuition. So you got to be extremely wealthy if you're a student from like India, Bangladesh, a lot of these other countries, because you have crazy money in you're like top past 0.1%. In the 1% in your country. And I had a friend, his dad was paying $5,000 a month rent for 2-bed, 2-bath. His dad was paying like $5,000 a month for his brother in Canada. Wow. So these people were like they were spending more on like food and their luxury stuff than my dad earned. Right. So isn't that
just like baffling to you?
Yeah.
I bet it was probably just like mind blowing to you.
Oh no, it was mind blowing. I was like, damn, like 4,000.
It just opened you up really to a whole different world. So how are your parents now that you are not using your degree for, what?
Oh, my parents think I'm an idiot. Like my dad's like, what does this guy do on the computer? He said he's like
doing, so he's doing nothing. Yeah.
I go live and my dad would be like, is Facebook paying you? And it's like hard to explain to your parents. That's not how it works.
Right.
But look, sometimes
eventually it will work out. It just takes time.
Yeah, it just takes time. And look, when you're doing entrepreneurship and you're doing your own business, your parents say like, oh, you should have got a job, because that's all they know. They don't understand, and I just ignored them.
It's true. Yeah.
So
even with my own kids, my oldest for a while there, he wanted to be a YouTuber and all this stuff, and I was like, "Dude, you're going to college."
Yeah.
And and he's like, you have an online business, and I said, well, I know, but I started mine 25 years ago, and let me tell you, it was a slow go. It was slow going. So now it would be much quicker, but I was doing everything like I don't want to say before internet, but
no, it's a different time. Even though
it really was, it was a different time, and now you can just jump in and get started. So but yeah, I get where your parents, are coming from, because it is, just the ways that. So what are some common misconceptions do you think about job seekers without degrees?
That some of them think they need a degree to get to the next level.
Yeah.
Big thing is that they need a degree to move up and continue their career. Oftentimes, like I'll get people who worked with one company, they moved up and they got laid off. They're like, oh, I won't get another job without a degree. And I'm like, no, that's not true. Oftentimes, it's the resume. It's the resumes. As you work in the business, you see most people say like, oh, I can't move up. They'll give whatever reason. And you look at their resume and you're like, your resume is like, does not sell you well. It's just like saying, I breathe, I sit in a chair, I look at my computer, I type, and I spell words correctly. And it's like, no, you need to really sell yourself and talk about the impact. The other thing is, they think that when they need to transition to a different career, that they need a degree. So, and they also assume that they can't make the same as their college degree counterparts because they need an MBA. And I'm like, look, at the end of the day, you need to learn how to sell yourself.
That is so true. That is really it.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the number one thing that I see too with clients. They have to sell themselves. They're too I don't know, Yeah.
They're too humble. They're too humble. Yeah. And I'm like, just show. Who cares if someone has an MBA? And, I was talking to my friend who's a product manager at Snapchat. He said some of the best workers are people without degrees or non-traditional backgrounds, or they didn't go to best schools because they have that chip on their shoulder and they have to prove themselves and they don't get the benefit of the doubt. Whereas like he's worked with plenty of people who went to like Ivy League schools and they're not good at their jobs, but people hire them because they had a big company. They have the big company because they went to a good school. They went to a school. And I'm like, the real world is different from school. In school, you have a curriculum, you have a test, you do the test and whatever. Real life, things change, right? There's no curriculum for like how to be great in AI. There's no curriculum for how to master LinkedIn. And even if they teach that at schools, by the time they have some info, the info gets really outdated.
So true. Yeah, it's just constantly evolving. So, what industries do you think? I mean, this was something that I was thinking. Are there some industries or roles where you think yes, they definitely need a degree? I mean, obviously. Yeah. Maybe I should change that or something.
That's a good question.
Don't need degrees. I guess. What are some that you think definitely yes? Because doctors, lawyers, things like that. But then also, what are some that because you've helped them that they don't need a degree?
So here's what I'll say. I'm a radical, and I think there's in all careers there should be a pathway. That's not easy, but there should be a pathway for people without degrees to break in. Because what if you get someone, and I'm going to talk about med school, what if you get someone who aced the MCAT, who passed all the boards without going to medical school? Now, I do think they have to take the right compliance, safety, and lab things to get in, but if someone could pass the boards without going to medical school, they're actually better than the medical schools themselves. And there are people who can pass, if someone can pass the bar without going to law school, maybe they have to get some work experience to qualify for that. But I do think, like, look, you know what? You should be able to make it. Do I think that should be the traditional way? No, but I think that there should be some
exceptions.
Exceptions for people who are savants, who are geniuses, who are just, in that.
Really driven and really smart. And
then, but obviously you have the medical, field and, they have a lot of, for the nurses and whatever, but there are pathways in medicals where they have certificate programs or they have 1 or 2 year programs where you do something very specific, like people, x-ray techs and rad techs and all these other ones. So I do think, maybe, some of the specific engineering ones, like if you're working on that, you do kind of need it. But again, there should be exams that are really freaking tough that if you could pass it, and get some work experience that
you should be able to do it.
You can get the license and all that. But I'll tell you the careers that are the most friendly. So obviously anything in software and tech, they're very friendly. You can prove yourself. You can build a project. You can go approach. You can work for a startup. You can build your own thing. Sales. Again, sales is like, okay, you can sell. Now, some companies are biased. Some hiring managers are biased. And it's dumb because if you can show your numbers, that's all that matters.
Right.
Marketing is very friendly because, again, it's like you can prove yourself. And these are careers where you can do projects. I've seen a lot of people in HR and recruiting. They get in as an assistant. They start learning a lot about compliance and all that. I've seen people actually become paralegals, right? They're like programs. You get your paralegal certificate. So just realize that even if some roles are not available to you, there are adjacent roles that are available to you.
True.
And you can still work in that industry.
Kind of speaking of that, I was going to say, I know, and I'm sure you've seen this a million times, but with our clients that don't have degrees and they're very worried about it, even though they have this great background, a lot of times companies will say degree required, but it really isn't. Because I'll always say, just send your resume anyways, just send it. And it is always so exciting when they're called in for the interview, when their experience wins over. And I think maybe some companies just need to put that on there.
I'm going to tell you, I know the actual reason.
Yeah.
So
tell me.
If someone in their company has an H-1B and works in the role, if they remove the degree requirement, it'll jeopardize all the H-1Bs.
Interesting.
So some companies will have it up there, but there are people who can make exceptions. So just apply. And one thing that I tell my candidates without degrees, if they went to college for a little bit, put your college and just say major in computer science. And then,
same.
and then people will say ATS is rejecting me for lack of degree. And I'm like, Most of the time they're not. And then I also tell them if in LinkedIn they have the knockout question, do you have a degree? Just say yes. Go in, sell yourself during the interview, be transparent. But if they don't ask, don't bring it up.
Yeah, that's a little tricky. I mean, I would definitely let them know, like, I don't know, somehow, because if you get in there, that's one I'm a little on the fence with.
Yeah. No, it's one of those that you have to click that box because you're gonna get it's a knockout question. When it's a knockout question, you're not gonna get in. So I'm like, get in, be transparent, tell them you can do the role, but when they ask you have a degree, just say no and just say I know how these systems work and I didn't want to get eliminated without at least having a conversation.
Or even if you've been in college, you can always say, I have coursework in this, or I have 2 years under my belt, and that works too. I've been telling clients that for years, that really, you may not have your degree because that happens, life happens. You get married, you have kids, you don't have time anymore. And, but that schooling does help. What you have does help. So let them know. We do the same thing. It might be like, coursework in whatever. But it does help, especially if they're requiring it. So have you ever been surprised by a client's career journey, after working with you or what's happened, or tell me some good stories. Tell me some good success.
It's crazy. This is not even due to me. This guy worked on nuclear submarines. Then he worked on process plants. He only had to design them, but they ended up having him manage the construction of plants because he was so good. Before that, he was a self-taught programmer. Then he was a data center technician at Google. He worked his way up, and he was the first person at Google to get promoted to SRE, Site Reliability Engineer, in the history of Google, from data center technician. And then it's just you can really do a lot. It takes work, but you can do a lot. And I've had people that I've worked with, and they come to me making they're working at a GNC, and now they're doing cybersecurity sales. And now look, it takes 2 to 4 years, right? They'll get the first job, they'll get promoted, and now they're clearing 6 figures. And they just stick to the path. So it's just, but one of them is I helped him get a job at Tesla, and he worked at a tire shop, and it's crazy, on his resume he put that he changed 10,000 tires in 6 months. So
probably true.
Yeah, he did. We calculated it. We calculated it, and he was like, "Wow, that's, instead of saying you're busy,
that's impressive." Yeah,
show that you did it." And he did. He got a job at Tesla, and then he turned his life around. He was able to save some money. They gave him Tesla stock. The stock blew up. He was able to clear some debt. So he was a good guy. So I just come across so many stories of people who just don't think, and they're like, wow, you know what? I got hit up by Amazon. I got hit up by Google. I'm at Microsoft. I got hit up by this company. And it's like, wow, this is the first time I'm getting above 6 figures. This is the first time I'm clearing 150. My friends told me, and it's beautiful to see.
So, okay, here's one. And we've kind of touched on it, but what do you do with, when you're working with clients and they kind of lack that confidence? I mean, how do you help boost them up? Because you've seen their experience, or that they're a go-getter, that they'll be able to do this. I mean, how do you do that? Because, we all, not we all, but a lot of us have imposter syndrome. A lot of us think, we can't do something. And so how do you?
So when I write the resume line by line in front of them. So essentially they see themselves getting built, and then they're like, I'm like, look, this is your resume. We didn't lie. This is true. And they're like, that is true. And they look at it and they're like, wow, that's me. That is truly me. I did do that. That is that. And they're like, wow, this is this paper is not lying. And then that just gives them a big boost of confidence. And then they start getting an interview too. And then they're like, wow, I realized that I was doing things wrong, and I wasn't getting responses, not due to my skills and that I wasn't getting responses because I wasn't doing it right, not because I lacked the ability or something.
Yeah. And it is that, it's that confidence. And I know, because I see the same thing with our clients, when they see this resume and they're like, wow, I am pretty awesome. Once they see that finished, it's nice to see yourself on paper, and just, it's all in your head. You got to get it on paper, and then It is pretty amazing. So what do you see? Okay, I'm just going to throw this out there.
Yeah.
What do you see? How do you see the job market kind of evolving in terms of valuing skills over formal education in the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, I would think it would be more because we are in this technology age, but especially with AI and tech, I mean, what do you think?
Skills, more companies are moving towards skills-based hiring. However, it's tough because a lot of companies you're going to see like Google, I think IBM, a lot of Ernst & Young, they have things that they don't require college degrees, but I'm going to be honest. Ernst & Young, like the partners are some of the most stuck up people. Like my friend has a friend who's a partner at Ernst & Young, and he's like, no, I'd eliminate someone without a college degree. So what happens is a lot of these companies have policies, but internally, it really depends on the manager. I've seen on Blind, there's some people at even like a place like Amazon, they're like, if I see a person without a degree, I'm going to make the interview harder so they can't pass it. So it's one of those things that, and you see a lot of companies get rid of their DEI programs. And
I know that just makes me so mad.
And it's like, what I think is going to happen as long as the market's bad, they're just going to go to paper, who looks good on paper. But I think that smart companies are going to realize, like, look, the market's bad. We need people with real skills. And I do think that more and more careers are coming up and colleges are just not adapting. They're just too slow. I was
going to ask you that. So do you think traditional education and colleges are going to be able to adapt and evolve with the shift?
No, because
why would they? Because then they'd be...
So here's the reality. I've looked at working at college career centers. If you're working as an advisor, you're getting paid like 40 to 70K maybe. 70K is at the high end. And then if you're working as a director, maybe you're getting paid 80 to 110, maybe 130. Now, that's not bad. But let me tell you, I've done so many resumes that I'm like, I see people making 250, 400, 500. Screw that. I'll spend a year learning and go make 300. So the reality is you're not going to get the best people working at these places who are up to date on modern things. And
so true.
And the other thing is academia. Like, I'm going to give you an example. So the person who worked at my career center, very nice lady, I liked her. On her LinkedIn, she said, if you went to the school, don't connect with me unless you actually worked in the career department. So it's like, okay. And then, so it's like LinkedIn didn't even have a profile photo, not optimized profile at all. And I'm like, you should be helping the students and being out there on LinkedIn to advocate for the school. Then she's working at another college university, so it's like these people are very outdated. And my friend works at a college university.
Yeah.
And he said it's like the other person doesn't even have a LinkedIn profile. She's helping students with careers. She doesn't have a LinkedIn profile. And they're so outdated. And it doesn't matter where you go. I do a lot of Ivy League. And look, I went to my Columbia, right? I went to the person that had a program. I was like, hey, you know what? Like, I learned a lot about resumes. Like, the formats that you're giving are not ATS friendly and all that. They're like, oh, but it works for our students.
It doesn't though.
And I'm like, okay, because you're taking actuaries, which is not a high demand field, and you're putting them in. Of course, they're going to get it. But I was like, if they want to go into data science or these other careers. So it's just the mindset of academia. And one time I remember someone was researching a lot about like people without degrees. And I said, hey, if your person ever wants to talk to me, ask me questions, I'm more than happy to do that. It's like, oh, we already know everything. We already have all the data. And I'm like, why would you, like, as a researcher, why would you not talk to people,
Right. Why would you turn it down? I agree. And I'm not saying this for every college career center, but we get a lot of students of our clients, our clients who are execs or whatever, they send their kids to us. And they're like, look at the resume that the career center did with them. And it's terrible. It's like a 1980s Microsoft Word format, objective, and it's just horrible. And they don't, I think that, I don't know, not all of them, because there are some that are good, but some of them that we see, I'm like, oh my gosh, no. And the kids, I mean, they don't, they just use it and go. And so I know it's tough. So if you could give one piece of advice to someone without a degree, maybe feeling stuck in their job search, what would it be?
Just know that you probably have more skills than you think you do.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, you can probably upskill and learn and get to the point where you're really competitive. Too many times, especially if you have work experience, you've done a lot. You just have to help people understand it in a digestible manner. And that makes a big difference. And you have to know how to talk about your things. Like, even if you're working in retail, I do a lot of like retail resumes, and it's like, how much in customers, how much in transactions did you manage a day, right? How many people did you train, right? Those people, did you get promoted? How many people did you lead? Did you decrease things, make things faster? These are things like, even at a job that's considered low, like you can use that to leverage your next position.
Right. Yeah, it works. I mean, it's great experience. They just need to learn how to sell themselves.
Yeah. Learn to sell yourself.
Yeah. All right. So I have one last question for you. This is our fun question. So what is something that you are passionate about that most people don't know, like a volunteering or a hobby or an interest?
Yeah. So I'm an assistant wrestling coach.
Right.
And I've been doing it like 15 years. Like,
did you wrestle when you were in school?
Okay. I wrestled in high school.
Okay.
I only wrestled 2 years because it wasn't a sport. I didn't even know it was a sport till my junior year. And we got a wrestling team junior year. And the funny thing is, the head coach, my coach in high school, is who I've always been the assistant coach of. So it's just funny that, like, like I've been doing it so long. And I've been doing it so long that I have kids who have graduated that I did their resumes and they have their first job.
Oh my gosh.
And one of the kids I coached from his junior year, he's now the other assistant coach. So it's like, it is one of those things. It's something I generally love, just because I think it's always good to do some sort of sport or activity because it challenges you. I think too many times
it does.
Like, sports are one of the few things where you can fail at without having true consequences, right? You fail in school, you fail in other things, it's really bad. But you have to learn how to fail. In order to succeed, you have to know how to fail. You have to know how it feels to get beat up. And you have to know it really pushes you and it gives you that mindset. And so that's something it like to help others like succeed, because my wrestling coach had a big impact on me and that stayed with me.
That's nice.
I like to have that impact on the kids, and it's just good to see them, grow and develop, and just, you just realize that, hey, they're going to be great people who are going to help others down the line. Yeah.
And that's nice. And they have somebody, your age, young, who they can look up to and.
It's funny. I'm not that young, but I'm 33, but I look a certain way that people can't tell. Like, they're like, people get surprised when I tell them I'm 33, but I can pass off at like 25 to 28.
I thought you were 25.
Yeah. So people don't realize that I've had like whole career and all these things and all that. But it is good. Like, like the kids, they need a lot of the, most of the kids are boys. They need like people to look up to. They see that I went to school. So I tell them, look, regardless of what you want to do, whether you want to go to college or whether you're not, like, I will help you. I'll tell you what you need to do to get started today. And it helps the kids know that, like, hey, okay, I know a lot more, because I'm going to tell you, high school and college kids, they get advice from the same area, or they get advice from their peers or their friends. And a lot of times it's bad advice. And I'm like, no, that's not how you want to do it. This is how you want to do it.
Right. So, how does somebody work with you? How do they get in touch with you and follow you? Oh, and I should mention, because you and I met on TikTok.
Yeah, so we met on TikTok. So if you want to support me, if people want to follow me, they want to support me, check out the No Degree Podcast. I paused it, but I have like over 200 episodes. Feel free to check it on YouTube, Spotify, your favorite platform. LinkedIn.
They can find you on YouTube, Spotify, and
LinkedIn. So LinkedIn.
Okay.
Jonaed. You'll find me. Warning: I'm a clown on LinkedIn, so it's like I make fun of things. I find LinkedIn to be a boring platform, so I'll bring skits and all that.
You bring life to LinkedIn.
I bring life
like
to
you
LinkedIn.
did TikTok, which was I thought was your videos and everything were funny, and that's nice because and it's nice that LinkedIn is that
I think
you have that on LinkedIn.
My last video on LinkedIn was my business partner Kevin. He was negotiating a salary decrease And so we were talking about negotiation. We like having fun. We like being stupid. But you learn.
Yeah, you learn. Yep. Well, this has been great. I appreciate you coming on to talk with me. And now people know how they can find you. And I really hope that this gives people hope that they don't have to have a degree. They can still earn a great living without a degree. It really just takes drive and energy. But and learning how to build yourself up, learning how to sell yourself.
I'll tell you one thing. The person I did a resume for who made the most I think he hit $1 million.
Wow.
And he started working at Verizon. Like, he worked at Verizon as like a teenager, kept on working up. And then he ended up managing like hundreds of stores, and he was in sales, and his salary was dependent on, if he made all the stores increase by 10%, you have hundreds of stores, you get a stock and commission related to that. So just realize that the sky's the limit.
The sky is the limit. Oh my gosh. No, that's a great story. And really it is. I mean, it's that work hard, and I totally believe that, but well, this was great. Thanks again. And we'll see you on all the socials.
See you around.
Thanks again for listening to the Office Latte Podcast. You can find us anywhere you listen to your podcast. You can follow the podcast on Instagram and TikTok at Executive Resumes, or subscribe to our YouTube channel, Office Latte Podcast. If you have any career questions or conversations you want us to talk about, send them to officelattepodcast@gmail.com, and we'll answer them in an upcoming show. Have a great week and stay caffeinated.